Go ahead and compare.
Keep the trend rising. They have impacted me by helping me as a student realize that I am not perfect or that I can still improve more as a student.
All right, 2 questions up there, purpose or purposes, and 2, how have they impacted you? The second one might be it hasn't impacted you, and that's fine, but we need to talk about why.
I said the data-driven dialogue's purpose is for us to predict how we've either built or broken down our character and to kind of be ready for the character progress report. They impact me because they either prove me right or wrong, and that is good to see and to acknowledge.
Okay. What else? Yes?
Differently from Ivan's point about seeing what you do good and bad, I would like to go in a different direction and say that we do a data-driven dialogue to realize what we're doing good and what we're doing bad so that we can fix it if we're doing something bad. And the impact that this has had on me is that if I start slacking off or something, it'll show me what I need to fix.
Or now I try to ask my question.
Okay. Right.
Similar to Aeneas's and Andrew's point of fixing our mistakes, I would like to add that the purpose for the data-driven dialogue is to allow us to realize what we did wrong and to realize that if we want to progress, we must fix that or those mistakes. The data-driven dialogues have helped me as a student because they point out my mistakes or weaknesses, and I learn to fix them in order to get better grades or higher scores on my CPOs.
2 things before we continue. Is it only about the mistakes?
No.
It's also about
What you're doing well.
what you're doing well. And this morning, we're not going to look at the character progress report. We're going to look at the data-driven dialogue for your 3rd quarter grade. So the 3rd quarter ended last week. So again, it's not just about the character piece, but also the academic piece as well. So we talk about the purpose. It's not just looking at what is it that you're doing well as far as that character progress report. What else? Actually?
Similar to Nick's point of fixing mistakes, I'll say the purpose of the data-driven dialogue is so we can notice what places we are doing well, and so we can improve. They have impacted me as a student because they help me bring up my scores and fixing mistakes I've made, so I don't get the same ones over and over.
Good. Others? Julie?
Similar to Maria's point that the purpose of the data-driven dialogue is to point out mistakes. I said the purpose for the data-driven dialogue is to learn from our mistakes and understand that if we want progress, we're going to have to try something new. It has impacted me as a student by showing me that I'm staying at the same level and I need to change.
Anything else? Come on.
Similar to Maria's point about how we have to improve our weaknesses and keep improving on our strengths.
They have impacted me as a student and encouraging me to go beyond expectations and keep working towards time.
I like the word reflect there. The whole point of this is not just to point out mistakes, but it's to reflect. It's to look at what are you doing well, what are you not doing so well, and what can be done at both ends. If you're doing something well, we want to replicate that. We want to continue it. But we also want to do it better. And if you're doing something poorly, well, we can fix it. But you have to identify it first. So we're going to look at 3rd quarter grades. So take out a piece of paper. First step remains the same. Predict. What you expect to see could be based on grades, could be based on attendance. I've highlighted some pieces of attendance for some of you, be it absences or be it tardies. Could be about missing work versus turned in work. Could be about warm-ups versus final drafts. 2 to 3 solid predictions. Again, do not use the word because. You're not explaining yet. You simply want to predict what you think you're going to see. This is the entire quarter. Think about the quality of predictions. If you tell me you predict you're going to get a B, and you tell me you predict you're going to get a D, does that tell me that's a solid prediction? No, because you're giving two pretty widespread grades. And that tells me you're not very aware of what it is that you've been doing. Step 2, for those of you who are there, is going to be to observe. Again, I'll give you your progress report face down. If you haven't finished making predictions yet, don't turn it over. Once you do, observe. What do you notice? Could be grades, could be attendance, could be a mixture. Again, do not use the word because. You're not explaining yet. You're simply noticing what you observe. 3 to 5 observations.
Thank you.
Step 3, for those of you who are there, this is where we do start making some connections. Again, infer. Why do you think you see what you see? Start making connections between what you see and why you see it. It could be positive, it could be negative. Odds are it's going to be a mixture of both. And again, if you say I didn't try hard enough, get to the bottom of that. Why didn't you try hard enough? We've talked before about root causes. We want to identify the main issue so that we can either fix it or continue it. I wanted my grade to be higher. Why? What was the motivation? The deeper you can go with the why, the more likely it's going to actually have an effect on what you do. Step 4, those of you who are there, gets into the plan. So now what? What will you do to make improvements? What will you do to continue the things you're doing well? There were several A's, there were several B's. We're not just focusing on mistakes. Those of you who have done well, what are you going to do to continue doing well? If you get satisfied, if you get complacent, odds are your grade's going to drop a little bit. Come up with something specific, actions that will allow you to make progress, and actions that can be measured. We've talked before, how will we know whether or not you're successful? If you want different results, you need to do something differently. It's not just going to change on its own. You have to make conscious decisions to do something differently, and a lot of you have. That's the character progress report. A lot of you have made some conscious decisions to do things differently. It's been pretty impressive.